Hi everyone, welcome here. If you're new here, my name is Rebecca. If you're not new here, welcome back. Thank you for coming back and watching another video. So in today's video, I want to talk about 10 decluttering mistakes to avoid. So it's hard to say exactly how long I've been a minimalist. It wasn't like I woke up one day and I was like, today's the day I start wearing the label minimalist. But it's been several years that I've been on this path. And over that time, I've learned a bunch and I've made a lot of mistakes. So in this video, I was hoping to share just a little bit of what I've learned to hopefully help you on your journey. And before we dive in, as always, if you have not subscribed yet, please subscribe down below. And if you end up liking this video, please make sure to give it a like, leave a comment down below. That really helps my channel a lot. And I don't often plug my Instagram over here, mostly because I keep forgetting, but I am on Instagram pretty much every day in my stories. So if you want to keep in touch over there, I'd love to have you. And with all that said, let's get started. The first decluttering mistake to avoid is not having a plan. Decluttering can feel like a huge undertaking, especially if you're new to it. And if you don't go in with a plan, it can get really overwhelming. So biting off smaller chunks and giving yourself a timeline for those chunks can really help. So you can think about grouping things together by type of item, like I'm gonna declutter all of my clothes, or I'm gonna declutter all of my dishes. Or you could do it by room, like today or this week, I'm going to declutter my bedroom, and give yourself actual timelines for those smaller chunks so you feel that sense of accomplishment and you can keep the motivation going. And another thing that I feel like can be really helpful in this area is creating almost like a vision board for yourself. It doesn't have to be like an actual printed like poster board or anything, but even just a collection of images of spaces that you're drawn to, spaces that you like the feeling of, the look of, the energy of, and use that as a reminder of how you would like your own space to feel. So when you feel like you're losing steam or becoming unmotivated, or you feel like you want to quit, you can take a look at those photos and be like, oh yeah, like I want my space to feel like this. I want my space to look like this. It can just help push you along on your journey and to keep things going. The second mistake to avoid is not having a plan ahead of time of how you are going to donate, sell, or even throw things away. I think it's really easy to fall into the trap of putting things aside to eventually do something like sell or donate and then never getting around to it. So what I've personally found helpful is to identify ahead of time how I'm going to sell, donate, or throw something away. So when I go into a decluttering project, I'll say to myself ahead of time, okay, I'm gonna identify things to sell and I'm gonna sell them, let's say on Poshmark and Facebook Marketplace. And I'll give myself an actual timeline. Say these have to be up on those sites by the end of the week. And if they don't sell within a week or 6 weeks or whatever timeline you want to give yourself, then you have permission to donate it or give it away. Because if you're anything like me, the things will just pile up and you have the best intentions of getting them up to sell and then you never do. And then you continue to have those items cluttering up your house. So going in with a plan can definitely help. And this also goes with donation and with things you're going to throw away. Identify where it is you want to be donating things to. With a lot of places, you can even schedule a pickup or just check them out online so you know what their hours are and when you're going to be able to drop things off, so you have an actual plan in place. And if you are decluttering for the first time or you have a large undertaking, you might need to plan for something like a junk truck or a dumpster or a way to get rid of a high volume of trash. So just making sure you have all those pieces in place ahead of time so you're able to take action with the items once you've decided to declutter them. Number 3 on the list, I am so guilty of this, and it's trying to organize things before you're done decluttering. I do this all the time. I really like to organize things. That feels like the really satisfying part of the entire process of decluttering. So I always want to skip ahead to the fun part. But the problem is if you start to organize things before you really have an understanding of what it is you're keeping and what it is you're getting rid of, it's hard to establish systems that are really going to work for you. The best thing you can do is get an overall view of all of the things that need to be organized in a particular category or space, and then begin to find homes for everything. This is why I think the mariekondo method of doing things by category instead of by room is really helpful. So take something like books, for instance. If you're decluttering by category of things, you're going to take all the books from every room in your house, put them in one place, and go through them that way. Versus if you're decluttering by room, You might go through all the books that are in the bedroom, and then 2 or 3 weeks later, you might go through all the books that are in an office. And in that case, it's hard to really get a sense of volume for how many books you actually have. It's hard to get a sense of any duplicates you might have. It's just a more fractured way to understand the full scope of the possessions you have, which I think can make things more difficult. So do make sure you're done decluttering an area or a category of things before you start to think about how you're going to organize it, or before purchasing or identifying things you need to organize it as well. Number 4 is not getting things out of your house immediately. This is sort of related to what I was talking about earlier about having a plan. Not only do you want to have a plan, but you want to be able to act on it pretty much immediately. Not only does it not feel good to have clutter hanging out in your house for a long time, but you might find yourself or other members of your family re-evaluating things that you've already identified as a thing you want to get rid of. So in order to stand firm in the decisions that you're making, do make sure you get everything out of your house as soon as you can. Mistake number 5 to avoid is falling into the trap of sentimentality. Is that a word? Sentimentality? I think it's a word. Being sentimental. I don't think there's anything wrong with being sentimental. I think there are certain objects that hold a great deal of value to us, and we should absolutely be hanging on to those things. I do think that there are certain personality types who are just super sentimental and they really just want to hang on to everything. So if you find yourself struggling with feeling like every object you own is sentimental, I think what can be helpful in that situation is to think about levels of sentimentality. So the first level of this is you pick up an object and you can't imagine not being able to hold this object anymore. It feels like there would just be a void in your life, or it brings tears to your eyes, or you just like, it brings you so much joy to hold it in your hands. Don't get rid of that. That's definitely something that you might end up regretting if you did get rid of it. So that's sort of level 1. Level 2 is something that you want to hold on to it because it triggers a certain memory. I think especially as we get older, we get afraid of not remembering certain pieces or parts of our life. And so what I find helpful for this level of sentimentality is taking a picture of it. So you don't need to really keep the physical object in your life, but save a picture of it so you can look at that object if you're afraid of not being able to spark the memory. And then I think the third level of sentimentality is something that you just want to acknowledge the object, thank it for being part of your life, hold it one last time, and then you feel okay to let it go. I think sometimes just acknowledging the item and saying, thank you for being a wonderful part of my life, and thank you for sparking this memory, it then almost gives us permission to move on from that object. So if you're struggling with wanting to hold on to a lot of sentimental things, see if you can maybe start to categorize in one of those 3 levels and see if it helps. The other thing that I find really helpful with sentimental items is establishing a set space where your sentimental items have to go, whether that be a bin or a closet, but something that has a defined space that you don't want to have more than. This will help you being discerning in the things you actually save, and it will help celebrate the objects a little bit more. If they have a special place that's not super cramped, a space where you can actually enjoy them and touch them and interact with those objects, will help them be a more celebrated part of your life. The next mistake to avoid is following other people's rules. So if you're here, if you're watching this video, chances are you're probably just like me in that you like to get advice and watch videos on how to live a more intentional life and how to approach minimalism and decluttering. But it's helpful, I think, to take all of this content as inspiration and not as mandates. So if you're watching a video like this, or if you're watching a video of like 50 things to declutter from your life, let that just spark some ideas and be more directional than an actual must follow this rule kind of mandate. I encourage you to take your own approach and make your own rules so that you feel comfortable with what you're doing. Mistake number 7 to avoid is falling into the what if trap. But what if I need it? But what if I want to wear it someday? What if I have a wedding to go to next year and I really want to wear this dress? You get what I mean. When you're evaluating whether or not to keep an item, I think you can first ask yourself, when was the last time I used it? Do you even remember the last time you used it? And the second thing to ask is, when is a situation when I would want to use this item again or need to use this item again? And what are the circumstances in which that would occur? So it's the second part of that question I think that's really important. Let me give you a for instance of something that I evaluated recently. In going through my kitchen, I was like, do I actually need this pie pan? So first I asked myself, when was the last time I used it? Over 3 years ago. maybe even over 5 years ago. I don't remember the last time I baked a pie. The second question being, when would I use it again and what are those circumstances? The first half of that question is easy, right? I would use it again when I wanted to bake a pie. But what would those circumstances be? Well, I would need to have all the ingredients to make a pie. I would need to have the time to make a pie. I would need to choose to make a pie over all the other things that I like more than pie, like cake and brownies and cookies. And I'd need people to share that pie with. And I would need to find a recipe that I really liked. That's a lot of things that need to align. And pair that with the fact that I also haven't baked a pie in 5 years, I think I'm going to declutter the pie pan. So getting really detailed around the actual circumstance in which you would use that object really helps you be realistic on whether or not you should keep it. Number 8 is keeping things out of guilt. This one's really hard. I think that there's really two sides to the guilt coin. The first is, I spent hard-earned money on this. I feel bad getting rid of it. I think the other side of it is, somebody gave this to me and I feel bad getting rid of it because that was a gift. Both are really valid and both are really complicated emotions to deal with. One of the things I like to think about when I'm having a lot of guilt around spending my hard-earned money or spending a lot of money on something is the fact that I'm also spending money on housing that thing. Every square inch of your house costs money. Even if you don't have rent or a mortgage, it still costs money to maintain every square inch of your house. And so do you want to sacrifice the money that you're paying for that house for that object to have a space to live? Do you see what I mean? It's almost like each one of the things you choose to have in your house, you are paying to house. And you can also think about the emotional toll on something. Is it worth it to have that item take up space or be part of the visual clutter in your house just because you spent money on it? And the second piece of that is saving something just because it was a gift. Here's the thing about giving gifts. All we ever want when we're giving somebody a gift is to bring them joy. That's why you give a gift, right? So if that object isn't bringing that person joy, chances are the gift giver would be okay with them getting rid of it. And the second piece of this, not to like kind of sound like a jerk, but it's your house and your stuff and you are welcome to keep or not keep whatever you want. And you don't have to tell them if they do end up coming to your house or asking about a certain object. That can be a great introduction into the conversation of minimalism. So do try to release yourself of the guilt of keeping something just because it was a gift. It's okay. The 9th decluttering mistake to avoid is decluttering other people's things. I've talked about this several times on my channel. If you're looking to build trust in any friendship, relationship, family, getting rid of somebody's stuff without telling them is probably not the way to do it. If your intention is to get the people you live with on board with minimalism and with the ideology of minimalism, have them be part of the process. Let them declutter their own things. Let them understand how it feels to declutter those things and how it feels to live in a space that's been decluttered. They might not get rid of as many things as you would like to get rid of, but they are participating in the process, which can really, really help. I encourage you to please include everybody in the process of decluttering. Number 10, and the last mistake on the list, is comparing. Here's the thing, minimalism is a really personal journey and it looks different for everybody. The underpinnings of a more minimal and intentional and mindful life are to pare down things so that everything in your life adds value. And so that volume of items looks different for everybody. While it is helpful to make a plan and to make a vision board and to gather inspiration from others, try to avoid the trap of comparing what your space looks like to anybody else's space. I feel like minimalism does have a bit of a stigma and people are afraid to wear the label of minimalist because they think they have too much stuff. But instead of trying to compare how much stuff you have to somebody else, just think about what adds value to your life. Keep those things and you are a minimalist. All right, that's it for this week's video. I hope you found this video helpful and let me know in a comment down below. Are there any mistakes that you've made? Anything that you've learned from your decluttering and minimalism journey? I'd love to hear. And as I said at the beginning of the video, please do make sure to subscribe. I put out new videos every Tuesday, so I will see you next week. Bye everyone. Did you guys notice that my light is gone? Fell down the other day. Don't worry, we're gonna put it back up. But it feels so empty right here. Where's my water? Water. Ah, I lost my place. Tired in here. My head cut off. Thank you for coming back and watching another video. I'm about to drop my laptop. Stay. And again, try that again. So in today's video, I want to start over. Take 2.